Hello viewers, in the last lecture on demography of India, we discussed about the demographic profile of India, and today we will discuss about the population growth and density in our country. The discussion in this chapter is largely based upon the census results. One of the major results of the population census is the insight it provides into the patterns of population settlements across the country. Some of the major factors governing the population growth and density in a particular area can be economic, political, social as well as environmental. The places with temperate climate, rich and productive soil, center of major economic activities which are politically and socially peaceful are also home to greater number of people, leading to increase in density of population. On the other hand, the growth of population is mainly determined by the birth rates, death rates and the net immigration rates. Historically, population is assumed to have different growth rates along with the stages of economic growth. Such relationships are mainly propounded by the demographic theory of transition, which states that in initial stages of growth, the birth rate as well as the death rate is high, leading to high growth of population. But as the economy grows, the death rate is lowered due to better standard of living, but the birth rate is still higher, which leads to very high rate of population growth. While in later stages of economic development, through the birth control measures, the birth rate also comes down, and lower birth rate along with the lower death rate leads to slower growth of population. Some societies may even experience a negative growth of population if the birth rate is not high enough to compensate the death rate of population. Thus, the growth rate of population is lower for underdeveloped countries as well as highly developed societies, while it is very high for the developing societies. Since India is categorized as developing economy and it has undergone through more than 60 years of planned economic growth, it would be interesting to know that growth and density of population of the country since independence and observe how the growth trajectories are changing over a period of time. If we just discuss the growth of population in India, we all know that India is the second most populous country in the world. At present, a little more than 1 out of every 6 person in the world is from India. With its current population size at 1210.2 million, it is also growing at a rate above the world average. It is now estimated that at the current growth rate, India would be the most populous country by 2025 or 2030. The growth rate of population in India vis-a-vis some selected countries can be observed from this figure. The figure shows that the annual average growth rate of world population between the period 2000 and 2010 was 1.23% per annum as compared to 1.64% for India. China registered a much lower annual growth rate of population, which was 0.53% and is now third lowest among the 10 most populous countries behind Russian Federation and Japan. On the other hand, the growth rate of population in India in this figure is the third largest after Nigeria and Pakistan. The growth of population in India is further elaborated in this table. The table shows that in 1901 there were only 238.4 million persons in India, which increased by more than 5 times in a period of 110 years to reach 1,210 million in 2011. Actually, the growth of population in India has caught its impetus only after 1951. In the first half of the 20th century, it grew by 1.5 times, while in the later half it recorded a phenomenal threefold increase. The table also shows other indicators of growth of population in India during the period 1901 to 2011. These indicators are the decadal growth rates, the average annual exponential growth rates, and the progressive growth rate over 1901 in each census year. The table shows that since 1931, growing number of persons was being added to Indian population, and this process continued till 2001. It is only in 2011 that fewer people are added to Indian population as compared to the previous decade. The changes in decadal and exponential growth rates of population in India can also be observed from next two figures. It is also significant to note the percentage decadal growth rate during 2001 to 11 has registered the sharpest decline since independence. It declined from 23.87% for the decade 1981-91 to 21.54% for the period 1991 to 2001, which indicates a fall of 2.33 percentage points, while during the decade 2001 to 2011, the decadal growth of 17.64% shows a fall of about 3.9 percentage points. Similarly, the average exponential growth rate for 2001 to 2011 has declined to 1.64% per annum from 2.16% per annum during 1981 to 1991 and 1.97% per annum during 1991 to 2001. It is also important to know about the state-wise growth of population in India. The distribution of population in different states of India shows that Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Bihar, West Bengal and Andhra Pradesh are the top 5 states by population size, while Lakshadweep, Daman and Diu, Dadra and Nagar Haveli, Andaman and Nicobar Islands and Sikkim are the bottom 5 states. However, if we go by the growth rate of population, relatively smaller states and UTs have registered higher growth rate. The next table shows top 5 and bottom 5 states ranked by the growth of population during 2001 to 2011. This table shows that during the decade 2001 to 2011, Dadra and Nagar Haveli has registered the highest growth rate of population at 55.5%, while Nagaland has registered the negative growth of 0.5%. To have a complete picture of state-wise growth in India, we can examine the growth of population in EAG and non-EAG states. The EAG states are the 8 states enlisted by the Empowered Action Group, that is EAG, which aimed at containing the growth of population in these selected states. These states have actually not been able to contain its population at the manageable levels in the past years. Therefore, the EAG has specially targeted these states for effective implementation of the population control and the related measures. These states are Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Bihar, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and Orissa. This figure displays the growth of population in EAG and non-EAG states and union territories during the decade 1951 to 61 to 2001 to 2011. The figure shows that between 1951 and 1971, both EAG and non-EAG states and the union territories have grown at an increasing rate, and the growth of non-EAG states was more than that of the EAG states. Thereafter, the non-EAG states have a decline in their population growth rates, which has not happened in case of EAG states. The growth rates in the EAG states almost stagnated around 25% between the period 1981 and 2001, whereas there was continuous reduction in the growth rate of non-EAG states and union territories. Consequently, the growth of population of EAG states has been higher than the non-EAG states and union territories since 1971. During 2001 to 2011, for the first time, the growth momentum for the EAG states has given the signals of slowing down. The growth rate of population fell by about 4 percentage points in EAG states during 2001 to 2011, and with similar reduction in growth of population in non-EAG states and union territories. The growth of population in India as a whole declined by about 3.9 percentage points. Thus, the decade of 2001 to 2011 marks a milestone in the demographic history of country in post-independence time, as it is for the first time that a considerable fall, which is more than the average decline for the country as a whole as well as non-EAG states and union territories, has been registered in the growth of population of these EAG states. During this decade, exactly half of the 20 most populous states with a population of 10 million or more have added lesser persons as compared to the previous decade. Now, more than 9 out of every 10 Indians live in states and union territories which have shown a declining trend in their population growth. A complete picture of growth of population in different states and union territories of India can be observed from this figure. The figure shows that 17 states and union territories have experienced an average growth rate lower than the national average, while about 18 states and union territories have experienced a higher growth than the national average. From this figure, we can easily observe the variations in growth of population in different states of the country. Actually, during the decade 2001 to 2011, various states have experienced a fall in their growth rates and so have entered lower growth trajectory as compared to the previous decade. The distribution of states according to the growth rate of population in the decades of 1991 to 2001 and 2001 to 2011 has been shown in this table. The table shows that the number of states with the percentage decadal growth rates below 18%, which is the current national average, has increased substantially from 10 in 1991-2001 to 17 in 2001 to 2011, while the number of states with more than 18% growth rate has reduced from 25 to 18. the states with slower growth rate than the current national average of 18% were having about 34% of the country's population, which has now increased to about 47% of total population of the country. On the other hand, the share of the states with more than 24% decadal growth rate has declined from 41% in 2001 to merely 9% in 2011. Thus, the decade of 2001 to 11 has marked a major shift of population from fast growing states to slowly growing states. These trends are further testified if we look at the average exponential growth rates for these 2 decades. For this, we can observe this table. This table shows that during the period 1991 to 2001, 15 states and union territories registered an annual growth of less than 2%. These states were having 42% of total population in the country. But during the decade 2001 to 11, there was about 25 such states and union territories, and they were having about 85% of total population of the country. Now coming to the second most important part of this lecture, that is population density in India. It is important first to define the density of population. The density of population is defined as the number of persons per square kilometer. It is an important index of population which shows the concentration of population in a particular area. The changes in density of population in India since 1901 can be observed from this table. The density of population in India has grown from 77% per square kilometers in 1901 to 325 persons per square kilometer in 2001 and 382 persons per square kilometers in 2011. It is even higher than the most populous countries of the world, that is China, where the density of population is merely 141 person per square kilometers. As we have already discussed that population in India has grown at an increasing rate up to 1971, so is the case of density of population. The table shows that the percentage increase in density of population in India has been increasing until 1971, and since 1991 the density of population in India is increasing at a declining rate. In the last decade, that is during 2001 to 2011, the rate of increase in the density of population has been 17.5% as compared to 21.7% during the previous decade, that is 1991 to 2001. Still, the density of population in the country is very high and is a serious matter of concern. The high level of population density put constraints on natural as well as the economic resources, leading to a number of ecological, economic and socio-political problems. However, the density of population does not pose the same problem in every region of the country, as we have different density levels in the different regions of the country. Top 5 and bottom 5 states ranked on basis of density are shown in this table. The table shows that in 2011, the highest density of population in the country is found in Bihar, followed by West Bengal, while Arunachal Pradesh and Mizoram are the states with lowest density of population. As we know, the density of population is determined by the size of population and the area. the natural corollary is that the high density states would be having greater share in population as compared to their share in total area of the country. While for low density areas, opposite would be the case. That is, the share in population is less than the share in total area. Now, let us discuss about factors affecting population growth and density. Although the population growth in a particular area is a function of natural growth of population, which is determined by the birth rates, the death rates in that area, and there are many other factors which may be attracting or discouraging the population from other areas to the area in question. Thus, the growth and density of population in a particular area is a function of natural growth of population and the net migration rates. Here, we will discuss about the factors which not only attract the population from other areas, but also force the residents to stay in or leave that area. In this context, we can say that apart from the natural growth of population, the growth and density of population in a particular area depends upon a number of socio-economic and physical factors. To discuss about the physical factors, we may say that the physical factors influence the growth and density of population in a particular area, and these include the climate, the quality of soil and the natural living conditions. The temperate climates, that means that climate is not too hot or cold or wet or dry, they provide the ideal conditions for higher density of population, while the extreme living conditions may discourage the human settlements. However, we have high density of population in South and Southeast Asia which have extreme weather conditions. It is due to the fact that high density areas of these regions have rich, fertile, alluvial and deltoic soils which encourage farming, while the low density areas have infertile soils. Availability of natural resources, altitude and the frequency of natural hazards are also important factors which may encourage the population growth and density in a particular area. A significant proportion of the world population live in low altitude areas, and there are few settlements in high altitudes with thinner atmosphere and low temperatures. Of total population of the world, 80% live below 500 meter altitude and 50% live below 200 meter altitude. Besides the areas prone to natural hazards such as earthquakes, floods, famines, landslides, etc., have very low density as compared to the areas with a history of fewer episodes of natural hazards. Greater access to natural resources, for example, cultivable lands, minerals, water, etc., is also important determinant of density of population. Similarly, the socio-economic and political factors are also very important factors determining the density of population. Actually, all these factors are not mutually exclusive. The areas rich in natural resources or fewer physical hardships are also the centers of economic activity, and therefore, that of the social and political activity. Economically and politically intense areas naturally attract more of the human settlements, resulting in high density of population. Historically, the port areas were more accessible to the traders, and therefore, these areas invited lots of investment in economic activities and related infrastructure. Slowly, these areas also became hubs of the educational institutions, the conglomeration of natural resources, economic activity, investment, trade, etc., and all these are important factors to attract more of the population, leading to high density. But the areas which are politically disturbed and are caught in shackles of social and cultural traditions are less likely to attract the migrants, and there may also be mass exodus under such undesirable events. Such areas may discourage the economic activity, as the investors and traders are less likely to risk their capital in such areas. It may result in low density, while on the other hand, the socially and politically peaceful areas attract more of the investment as well as people, resulting in high densities of population. Let us conclude this lecture. We have broadly discussed about the growth and density of population in India. We have observed that the population of India has been growing at such a rate that it is expected that it would be the most populous country of the world by 2030, replacing China, with hardly 2.4% of world surface area and 17.5% of world population. The density of population in the country is very high as compared to several other most populous countries of the world. Since the growth of population beyond the manageable limits puts extra pressure on natural and economic resources, it needs to be contained. For this purpose, the high density areas and the areas with very high growth rates along with relatively bigger population size are to be targeted with effective policy options. Otherwise, it may lead to serious consequences for ecological, social and economic aspects of the society. With this, we come to end of this lecture. I hope you would have enjoyed this discussion. Next time, we would discuss about the population distribution in India. Till then, goodbye, have a nice time.